All right, I just hit the go live button. Let's give it about 30 seconds to make sure it comes through. And then I will start talking. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Bonner, and I am the director of the Ferguson Municipal Public Library. In a moment, I will introduce our moderator. But first, I want to say thank you. Thank you to our moderator and timekeeper. Thank you to our candidates for Ferguson City Council. And especially thank you to all of you who are watching. Civic engagement is vital to the functioning of our democracy. And I thank all of you for stepping up and for being informed voters. There will be another forum like this for the school board candidates on Wednesday. Check the library social media feeds for details. Speaking of civic engagement, I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for helping to put on this event. The League of Women Voters is a non-partisan organization with a long and storied history of encouraging civic engagement and informed voting. Louise Wilkerson of the League of Women Voters is our moderator, and she will introduce the other participants. Thank you, Louise.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the forum for candidates who are running for a position on the Ferguson City Council. As Scott said, I'm Louise Wilkerson of the League of Women Voters of Metro St. Louis, and I will be the moderator for the forum this evening. As you know, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization striving to empower voters and defend democracy. I have to say, we didn't have to emphasize the defend democracy part until recently. And sadly, we have to say that. And so we are about the business of defending our democracy. Just so you know, we are nonpartisan. We do not support or come out in opposition to candidates. So we're not involved in campaigning for any candidate. However, we do take positions on public policy issues. And we do take positions for and against legislation. So that's what we do. Now, we believe one of the most effective ways to empower voters is to help them get information that will enable them to vote intelligently. So through this forum, we hope Ferguson voters will know more about the candidates and where the candidates stand on the issues. The League is very pleased to partner with the wonderful Ferguson Municipal Public Library to bring you this event this evening. And we want to thank Mr. Scott Bonner, director of the library, for inviting us to participate this evening. Our timekeeper this evening is Ms. Susan Williams from the League. Wave, Susan. And she'll help us stay on track by keeping up with our time. There are some ground rules for the forum this evening, and I do believe all of the candidates received those ground rules, right? Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to go over them briefly. I'm going to highlight a few things. The candidates will have 2 minutes each for an opening statement. They will have 1 minute to answer each question. They will have the right to speak to all questions. So in other words, all candidates are going to be asked to answer all of the questions. We ask, and then they will have 2 minutes each for a closing statement. We ask that the candidates focus their remarks on what they believe. And we ask them not to refer to their opponents or their opponents' positions or remarks. So the purpose of this forum is for them to present their own positions. The audience has been asked to submit questions electronically, and I have those questions. And And I, have as the moderator, I have the right to, I would say, not ask questions that are personal in nature, and to combine questions that are on the same topic. Our timekeeper will time all opening and closing statements, and she will hold up a little paddle that indicates 30 seconds left. Let's see, Sue, the purple background is getting in the way a little bit. But anyway, the 30-second paddle is yellow. And then when time is up, she'll hold the red paddle up. So if you see candidates, if you see yellow, that means 30 seconds. Stop means your time is up. Let's see, I think that covers the important things in terms of the ground rules. Now it's time to meet the candidates. Running to represent Ward 1, we have Ms. Linda R. Lipka. Hi, Linda. There she is waving. Okay. Running to represent Ward 2, we have Ms. Heather L. Robinette. Hi, Heather. And Mr. Trevon, better known as Von Walker.
Trayvon, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Trayvon. And
No
I'm looking
problem.
right at it. Excuse me.
No, not the first time.
Okay. Running to represent Ward 3, we have Mr. Mike Palmer. Okay. And Ms. Fran Griffin. There she is. Okay. All right. So they will give their opening statements in the order in which they were introduced, and their closing statements will be in the reverse order. Okay. So we'll begin with Ms. Lipka. Would you? There you go. Okay. So she's going to give her opening statement.
Now, what's my 30-second panel? Is that a yellow?
Yeah. And you have two minutes.
All right, because I've been known to talk too much. Everybody knows that. But my name is Linda Lipka. I've been a resident of Ferguson, Missouri for many, many years. I'm actually a generational resident in the sense that my grandparents moved here. My aunt and uncle were raised here. My mother was raised here. My cousins were raised here. I married my wonderful husband, John Lipka, and we've raised our children here. So I'm very committed to this community. I'm very tied to this community. I have very deep roots in this community. I've been on city council because I actually got on city council in 2016 after Michael Brown incident. And I really felt it was time that we step up as citizens to really start working to rebuild and heal this community. And we also needed, and I still believe, we need to open ourselves up to hearing what's uncomfortable and working hard to having the uncomfortable conversations, because that's the only place we actually find new education and new understanding. We've worked very hard over the last 6 years with a lot of change in our city staff personnel at the highest levels. We've seen a lot of change in our police chiefs at the high, our police department at the highest levels with our police chiefs. We've seen a lot of struggle with our budget and the various constraints on the budget and strains on the budget. And through all of that, we've still maintained our independence as a community. And I think we can continue to do that. We're working hard as a council and as a community to create an environment that citizens can feel like they can raise their family here. And we've been lacking in a lot of areas that need to be changed immediately. We need to increase our safety levels on the streets with gun shooting stopping, with traffic speeding stopping, with vandalism stopping and theft. And so all of these things that are part of the many communities, we know they happen everywhere, but it's time for us to start really focusing on stopping them here, because we need a safe and loving environment for our kids and our family. Thank you.
Thank you. Right on time.
Yay,
All
for the
right.
first time.
We'll go now to Ms. Heather Robinette.
Hello, everyone. I'm Heather Robinette, and I have served 2 terms on the Ferguson City Council. I too was elected in 2016. One of my primary goals at the time when I first ran was to make sure that the city complied with the consent decree that was just signed, that we were under intense budget constraints at the time, and we still are, and wanted to make sure that we were providing the city with the necessary services, as well as revamping our police and court as necessary under the consent decree. Since then, I will say that probably one of the biggest issues that has come up lately, Linda alluded to, is safety, and quite frankly, traffic safety. And I think that you'll hear more about that tonight, I'm sure, because that is on the forefront of everybody's mind. I've been in Ferguson for almost 18 years. We got involved with our community right after we joined the neighborhood, and we continue to do so. And our kids are part of the community as well. It's important for us to have neighbors that we look after, care about. The community at large is why we stay. It's important that we continue the work that we've been doing on this council. I ask for your vote in April for Ward 2, and I look forward to the rest of the forum. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Robinette. Now, Mr. Trayvon Walker.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for accepting my request to hold this forum this election cycle, as well as the Ferguson Municipal Library for coordinating this event. I am Vaughn Walker, a resident of Ward 2 and candidate for the Ferguson City Council. I grew up in Castle Point, St. Louis, and graduated from Ladue Horton Watkins High School some years ago. I have been a Ferguson resident for just about 5 years. I've served as my university Student Government Association president, where I advocated for student concerns to senior administration, as well as our governor-appointed Board of Regents. And I was recently unanimously appointed to the City of Ferguson's Personnel Board, where I seek to advise the city on personnel matters. Ferguson can't wait for solutions. In 2019, outside of my home in Ward 2, everything was taken from me: my car, my personal items, and the sense of safety in my community. I am young enough to believe in change, young enough to relate to, and young enough to connect with our youth. So many of the trials I have faced in my life, I believe, have prepared me to serve in this capacity. Representing Ward 2, approximately 7,000 constituents. The makeup of our anatomy of our city council is missing a commitment to grassroots organizing. After knocking on hundreds of doors, I quickly learned that the majority of our regular everyday citizens in Ferguson have little to no idea of what is going on in our local government. No idea of the new hiring of a new city manager, no idea of our new property restoration program, and no idea of the status of tearing down dilapidated homes or restoring them. We changed this, and residents have a right to remain informed whether they attend or don't attend a city council meeting. I look forward to sharing my platform with everyone and wish the best of luck to everyone on this Zoom meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So next we'll have Mr. Mike Palmer, running to represent Ward 3.
Good evening to everybody. My name is Mike Palmer. I'm a lifelong Ferguson resident. I grew up here, went to Griffith Elementary, Ferguson Middle, McClure High School, and I also went on to Flo Valley Community College. I received 10 associate's degrees from St. Louis Community College, but I never did go on to a 4-year degree. I started to work instead. I've done quite a bit of work in Ferguson, specifically Ward 3. I've renovated over 140 homes in Ferguson. I've opened up 4 businesses in Ferguson, which I still operate. And I've attracted dozens of businesses to Ferguson in many buildings that I've renovated over the years with partnerships with the city of Ferguson. I've always kind of stayed off the radar and did my thing and worked endless hours to make my community a better place. But I've noticed that our council has kind of begun to fall astray, and it's starting to be noticeable in the community with basic essential services. We can't cut grass, we can't pave streets, we can't sweep streets, we can't do hardly anything, it doesn't seem like. And there is a lot of lawlessness going on, and it's apparent in Ward 3, and it's been apparent with the countless doors I've also knocked on. People of all ages, genders, and races are terrified, and lots of them are considering leaving. So with the real estate market the way it is, we've got to capitalize on the improvement in the housing market. And we've got to solve some of our housing problems. And that in turn is my biggest, I think, effort with public safety would be the police department and then the neighborhoods. We've got to solve some of the problems in the neighborhoods because the housing falling apart and disinvestment is really starting to take away from the neighborhoods, and people start to not feel like stakeholders anymore. Then you lose your sense of community. That's the reason I've stayed in Ferguson for all these years, is the sense of community that I feel. Ferguson is a town of residents, not streets and parks and municipal buildings and businesses. It's a town of residents.
Thank you very much. All right, and last but not least, Ms. Fran Griffin, also running to represent Ward 3.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters as well as the Ferguson Municipal Public Library for hosting this event. I appreciate it. My name is Fran Griffin. I purchased my home at 24. This is the same home that I have lived in since 2005. So I've been a resident of the 3rd Ward in the city of Ferguson for almost 18 years. I'm a mother of 3. I have 2 boys and a girl, ages 22, 19, and 15. I was the chairperson prior to my election of the Parks and Rec Board. I've provided recommendations for the use of force, the stop, search, and arrest, the body cam and dash cam. And what got me started and actively engaged in my community is when my oldest son, who is now about to be graduating from Mizzou College, he actually came home after being stuck in a gravel road in the middle of a church lot in the 3rd Ward by the police with a gun to the back of his head for mistaken identity. And so that was enough for me to want to create some change here. I do have faith that we can do that. I am not into fear mongering. I'm into instilling hope in people, our most disenfranchised and marginalized folks in the community who have not had any for a long time. I was very instrumental in introducing participatory budgeting with our ARPA funds and with our upcoming budget into feedback and input for the hiring of our staff members here in the city of Ferguson. And I'm just looking forward to continuing to create the change for our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, everybody, let's get into the questions. And we'll try to rotate who goes first and who goes last. So the same person isn't always first. Okay. So we'll start with Ms. Lipkin. The question is, what course of action do you think should be taken with respect to landlords and owners who have derelict properties or lots in the city of Ferguson?
Okay, so the course of action for derelict landlords and homeowners are 2 different paths. The landlords, we do have a renters program. They do have to pay a fee. The bottom line is we need more enforcement. And unfortunately, the bottom line is we don't have a very large code enforcement department. And we do have a very large renting population. And the renters deserve to be treated fairly. They deserve to be in homes that are safe. As far as what I have in mind, it would be that we need to look at our budgeting, see what we can do in terms of growing our city inspection department so that they can actually meet the demand of the calls. And that's what we need to do. And if we can't, we need to find technology that will allow us to meet the demand of the calls in a quicker, more concise manner that may help time management for our staff.
All right, thank you. Ms. Robinette, same question.
Okay. So as far as the landlords go, like Ms. Lipka said, there is something that we are able to do. We can find the landlords. It just needs to be enforced. So So ramping up our city staff is, I don't want to say like she said, but ditto on that. As far as homeowners go with derelict properties, we need to make sure that we're offering space for them and time for owners to get what they need done, to get if they need assistance, to get involved with other entities that can provide assistance. We don't want to be punitive to everybody, go around and make people want to leave, but we do want to make sure that properties are kept up as they should.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Walker.
Yes, ma'am. I would echo the sentiments that already have been stated. I was an avid watcher of HGTV, so I understand that when you have beautiful homes, it's going to raise the value of the area that you're living in. And so I've definitely have seen some inequity when it comes to the upkeep of homes in Ferguson. And so looking at what we can do to address that is, of course, looking at our current staffing. And so actually one of the things that I've been focusing on, our question about from our city manager on the personnel board, is how can we create and build an employment staffing where, although we have a fiscally constrained budget, we still want to value those employees and get them to stay in Ferguson so they can actually create some strategy to making sure that we can enforce these policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Palmer, same question.
A few people have alluded to the lack of employees in the code enforcement department, which has been a struggle. On top of that, we have ordinances in place. We passed an ordinance called the Responsible Landlords Initiative, and it's never been used the way it was intended to be used. And if it was used correctly, you would force landlords to actually do something with their property, whether that's repair it, sell it, or get rid of it and sell it to somebody else who will repair it. The city has not been holding really anybody accountable to fix their properties. Using the tools we have and getting some more staff would solve problems. But also I'd like to, honestly, it's not always landlords and rental property looks bad. I just bought a property that was probably one of the worst in Ward 3 that was an owner occupant for 20 years. So I think some housing grants with ARPA funds that are matched by the city to improve the exterior of your home would go a long way. In the city wouldn't need hardly any resources to implement that because the residents are doing the work themselves.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you. I would definitely have to agree with what all of the panelists said. However, in addition to that, I would definitely take a look at our FNIP board. We have funds associated with that board that could be used to help, as well as the ARPA funds. And then I'd also say approaching from a grassroots effort, actually going to the homeowners and finding out, what are the reasons? How can the community come together and be able to help assist the issue, like actually addressing the issue? And so those will be my two things. Definitely staffing. We definitely need to be able to be on top of it. We actually did provide, we did put in monies for a new system so that our code enforcement would be able to collect, receive, and report different citations. And so I think in addition to that, I think, we also need to make sure that we have people that can actually help address the root causes of the issues.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, second question. There has been a lot of discussion about ethics for candidates and office holders. How far do you feel an official ethics standard should go and who should enforce it? So we'll start with Ms. Robinette.
So what was the last part of the question? How far should it go?
Yeah, how far should an official ethics standard go and who should enforce it?
So I would say that to be a candidate for city council or school board or anything, any local or municipal government entity, ethics play a big role. And I think we should all be coming here trying to do the right thing for the right reasons. I have nothing to hide in anybody can look in anything. I believe that the checklists that we're required to turn in and fill out and, check all the boxes as we apply to be a candidate, those should be adhered to. And the Missouri Ethics Commission should oversee that, or whoever, it doesn't matter who oversees it, but it should be consistent across the area.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Walker, same question. How far do you think an ethics standard should go and who should enforce it?
So I certainly agree. I think that ethics is really important when you're going to be representing a really large amount of people. And so making sure that you are somebody who has integrity, showing honesty, all of those different things. I do recall in a recent city council meeting, there was some discussion about how do we delegate if a candidate is not filling out certain things by a deadline, who is responsible for doing those kind of things and potentially removing them from the election and things like that. And so I do think that our city council needs to do some work around delineating, that's the word, delineating who does what, because there was a lot of discussion and robust discourse around that particular matter.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Palmer.
It's a basic essential function for government to have leaders who are held to the bare minimum or even more. I always hold myself to a higher standard than anybody I would expect anybody else to live to. It's very important that we follow rules. Rules are rules for a reason. And when one rule gets broken, all of them get broken. So the city, Ferguson definitely needs to do some cleaning of their ordinances to make sure they mirror probably the state ordinances. And then there needs to be a work session publicly done that determines who on staff or elected determines who has or has not been vetted and met the basic requirements to be on the ballot. Somewhere that has fallen apart. I don't know if it's just being more scrutinized now, or it wasn't in the past, or if it's not being scrutinized at all. But it needs to be, our ordinances in Ferguson need to mirror those of the state, so there's no question of which one we're following. And then somebody needs to be appointed that decides, who's being vetted and not.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Griffin.
Yes, thank you. In regards to ethics standards, I know we do have some that are currently in place that we are required to adhere by. In regards to enforcement, I do think that we need a more spelled out version for who it is that actually enforces it within the city. That was a source of contention, I know, when the issue came up not too long ago. And so for us, I think it's really important that we as a council sit down and go over and fill in some of those gray spaces so that we'll know exactly what that process is versus waiting till right before an election to address it.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Lipkin.
It's actually Miss Lipka.
Oh, Lipka. What?
That's
oh,
okay.
Okay.
No problem. So this one is close to me. I would say that the ethics for the candidates has to be unquestionable. If there is a list of rules that have been established by the state of Missouri and we're all required to follow those rules, then we're all required to follow those rules. You have to follow the rules to create a foundation of a thriving, healthy community. And if you cannot trust your politicians, your candidates, to follow the rules, how can you trust them to make them? That's what I want to know, because there's no difference. I mean, there's no room for error there. We also have a charter. So if our charter is being broken by anybody on city council, that has to be enforced as well. If we're not doing that, we're not following a charter, we don't really have a strong town. So we need to follow our charter. We need to follow our ordinances. And if our ordinances require to enforcement by a city clerk or a city manager or a city attorney, and they cannot do that, the ordinance is lame. It needs to be removed, or it needs to be rewritten and reworked, or it needs to be turned over to the state of Missouri to take over in those areas. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move on to the third question. And this voter says, quote, the mayor initiated a charter commission And the voter alleges that the mayor would not state why. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, that's what the voter is saying. So the voter wants to know from you, do you believe there is cause to study the charter, and in particular to consider changing the form of municipal government? So we'll start with Mr. Walker.
So the first thing I would say is the last time that the charter was amended or revised, I would like to know how often or frequently that happens. And then I do want to add this as well, even with our United States Constitution, there's many different ways that people interpret that Constitution. And so whenever we do make amendments to the charter, it needs to be involved in making sure that people actually can speak up if they disagree kind of process because of that specific thing. And so making sure that if we do revise the charter, that people get a chance to share what they feel, if they disagree or if they agree.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Palmer.
I feel that government transparency is important in all aspects, whether it's legislation we're working on, charter amendments, current new policies with housing or traffic stops. It's good to be informed and have your residents be informed because nobody wants to be in the dark. When people don't know what's happening, a lot of rumors start to spread, and that's when things can get dangerous. And that can divide communities in a lot of different directions. So I don't know what the purpose of the Charter Commission is, but I do know you should always be working to make your government better and function better. So if that's the purpose of it, we should know that as residents. I'm currently not on council, I'm a resident, and I was aware there was a Charter Commission, but I don't know what they're working on. And it would be good to know those things. As far as the size of our government and changing it, typically a government of our size, a town of our size is run by a city manager form of government. That's the most efficient way. But if there's any other data that would suggest otherwise, I'd be willing to look at that.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Griffin.
Yes, thank you. Well, yes, the Charter Commission, the whole purpose, like Mr. Walker said, that charter has been in place for a long time. We have rules that have been in there since the 1800s at this point. So we definitely need to update and look at some of those things. We talked about boards and commissions. We talked about consolidation of some of those. We talked about the need, as of right now, I'm not interested in copying the same process that has left a lot of people without a voice. And so there is a need for us as a council to be able to have more say-so on some of those issues. I do believe that some of the responsibilities are left up to those who don't live or are invested in our community. And so I have full confidence in the Charter Commission. We have some really great people on there that are knowledgeable and are going to be able to put something in place that will help us improve.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Lipka.
Yes, ma'am. I've been sitting here feverishly writing down notes. First of all, I would just correct that it is not something that's been there since the 1800s. It may have been originated in the 1800s, but we have evolved it through the years. And it's been involved because of charter review committees. So I would also state that we should probably stop calling it a charter commission, and we should actually call it what it is. It's a review committee. And a review committee actually just sits down, they look through the charter, they look to see, are there changes that need to be made? Are there things that we need to update to reflect society as it is now? We have gender issues that probably need to be reflected in that. So when and I've already talked about the ordinances that are clashing with the charter in regards to conflict of interest in elections. We already know that that needs to be changed or updated. So as far as a charter commission, I think reviewing the charter, I think it shouldn't be a commission. That's confusing people. It needs to be a review committee, looks it over, looks to see if there's anything we can update, and then presents recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Robnett.
Yes, so the actual Charter Commission, I don't find anything wrong with it, we should be looking at the charter periodically to make sure that it is kept up to date and any changes necessary are implemented or brought before council in the city at large. I do want to talk to the form of city government that we have. I do not agree with changing the form of government. We have a city manager form of government, and what that does is we hire somebody that has the background and the skill set that understands how a city works. There are no politics at play. It is apolitical. And then the city council represents the people to oversee that and make sure everything's running. So I as Mr. Palmer said, I think it is the most efficient form of government for the size of our city.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, going on to the next question. This voter, it says that he or she fears that Ferguson is in an infinite loop of destruction because this voter says traffic violations are not being addressed, that they're not being enforced, and that this lowers revenue, which in turn lowers the city's ability to fund traffic law enforcement. So I don't know if you agree or not that there is this cycle, but the question is, how would you break the cycle if it exists? And how would you go about helping to improve public safety? So I think we'll start with Mr. Palmer.
1 minute's quite brief for this, but
Yeah.
lack of law enforcement of basic laws is a huge problem right now, and people have been actually dying, innocent people. Not just traffic, but just basic preventative law enforcement. And it's directly attributed to a dangerously low level of staffing in our police department. Very dangerous. If the people knew how low it was, they'd be scared even more than they already are. We have got to work harder to hire more police officers that are qualified to do the job. And I don't think ticketing should be a revenue source. Put all the money from the ticket, do work programs to work off your fines. Put the money right back into the neighborhoods, tear down derelict homes with it, But we have got to hire officers, and we have to do multiple methods of recruitment other than posting it on the city's website. We also don't have a human resources manager right now. That makes it tough to hire cops when you don't have somebody in charge to hire them. So that's a few things.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Griffin.
Yes, thank you. I would say specifically in regards to the infinite loop of destruction with the traffic, I think there's different things that we can implement. I know the city of Ferguson is currently in conversation with St. Louis County now. Thanks to the organizing of people in the community, there was a push, a grassroots push, which pushed on the city, which pushed us to do what we needed to do to make sure that some funds are available from St. Louis County to be able to address some of these issues. On top of that, there were things that were mentioned, the city manager mentioned in terms of things, alternative ways that we can slow down traffic that wouldn't involve the presence of an officer, because we know nationally that there is a shortage. We know nationally that that is an issue. So it's not just left up to the city of Ferguson. This is something that's happening everywhere. We introduce social workers to address root causes of the violence that's happening.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's see, let's go to Ms. Lipka.
Okay, great. So basically we got to start with the basics. And like Mike Palmer said, we don't have a lot of police officers. We need something to happen now. We can't wait. We do need more police officers. We're working on that. It's a slow process. We have to do something now. What can we do now? I'll tell you what we did. I am the traffic commission council rep. When I got that commission, there was nobody on there. It wasn't doing anything. I handpicked citizens who had been on Facebook, who had been in the community, who had had direct contact with violent driving and had been part of criminal collisions. I don't call them accidents. When you're doing 90 and a 35, that's a criminal act, and you had a collision, it's a criminal collision. The Traffic Commission was brought together. They have been working very, very hard. What we need to do right now, we need to put speed bumps in. We need to do 3D stops. We need to have lighted stop signs so that at nighttime you can see that stop sign with no question. We need to start giving tickets to expired license plates. We have to get to the basics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Robinette.
Yes, so I'd like to point out, and I hear this quite a bit in the community, there's people think that because we're under the consent decree that our officers are not supposed to give out tickets for traffic violations, and nothing could be further from the truth. The problem that we have right now, as others have said, is we don't have enough officers to do traffic enforcement the way we would like to do traffic enforcement. And traffic enforcement does not have to be a revenue stream. Traffic enforcement is just that is safety enforcement for our residents. I know this is not just a Ferguson problem. This is an area problem in the St. Louis County area and further. So getting qualified officers on our staff to actually write tickets for deserving people who are breaking the law, I think is the more that people see that that's happening, the better that people will feel, and they'll slow down on the streets.
Oh, okay.
Thank you
You very much. Mr. Walker.
Yes, ma'am. Could you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, so there's a concern that traffic violations are not being addressed. In other words, people are violating traffic laws, and they're evidently not being arrested or forced or stopped. So the question is, the voter says this lowers the city's, revenue stream, and therefore lowers the city's ability to fund traffic enforcement. So that's, so the question is, how would you recommend that cycle be broken and public safety be improved?
Yes, ma'am. So I would say for starters, we have a real struggle with coordinating different meetings. And I've honestly been looking at a calendar day for Ferguson where there are meetings that overlap. We have a traffic commission meeting at a certain time, and then we have another meeting that overlaps with that meeting. And so I think that starting with a shared governance kind of model, making sure that we can actually, people have a lot of great ideas. I've heard a bunch of ideas on this particular topic right now. And so I think that what we need to do as a city is to bring some strategy behind actually achieving these solutions. We vote for the county government, who's about to get close to $200 million in ARPA funding. And we vote for that person. Ms. Days is our representative right now. And so we need to bring stronger collaboration and coordination to actually get some of these things across the finish line. And I believe that's what I would do when I'm in that seat.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Could you name, if you're elected and you're on the city council, could you name your top 2 priorities? And we'll start with Ms. Griffin.
Thank you. Well, my top 1 priority is definitely taking a look at any processes, policies, procedures, or protocols that negatively impact our most disenfranchised and marginalized people. I think that's one of the things that is a top priority. There are things that are layered within our system that have a negative impact. And I do believe when you take care of our most vulnerable, then you definitely take care of everybody. The second one would have to be creating alternative solutions to public safety. As I mentioned, organizing on the ground is very important. And in so encouraging people to organize around issues of importance, to put that push on the community, on local government, on county government, et cetera, is something that I definitely encourage in all aspects, because that's what gets things done.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Lipka.
So my top two priorities would be the traffic control is my top priority. As a parent who has buried a child who died in a car accident, it is very important to me that we get this done, that we get it done quickly and we get it done in a manner that not only addresses the issues now, but is a long-term solution for the future. I also believe that we need to create a recruiting program for police officers so that we can expedite the completion of the consent decree. Stephen Garrett was on council for a while, and he has come up with an idea that is very valuable. And it's an idea that we go and start recruiting from the School of Social Work and Social Psychology, and then invite them and encourage them to go through the police academy, because then you will start creating a PD, a police department that has trained social work, social psychology officers on the streets working with the community. If we could do that and recruit from those areas, we would move this along much quicker, and we would create a new breed of police officers that would allow this community to be the example that the government wants us to be.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Robinette.
So no surprise, safe streets is one of my top priorities. The speeding down side streets in residential areas is terrifying to our community. And it's not just a Ward 2 issue or a Ward 3 issue or Ward 1, it's all around. So definitely traffic enforcement and ramping up our police department is one of my priorities. The second is neighborhood stabilization. And I think a big part of that is making sure that we're getting homeowners into houses, working with FNIP and some of the other programs that we have in place for property restoration, making sure that we're tearing down hazards before they scare off other current homeowners. That's another big priority for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Walker.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. I would say also public safety. Hopefully by the time we reach our amazing Ferguson 2040 plan, we don't have to say that that's one of our top concerns that need to be addressed. But what I will say is public safety is something that most of the people who I've talked to say that it is a huge concern. And so I would say focusing on what we need to do to continue increasing those policing practices, making sure that we have a robust department that's ready to respond to all different concerns is important for me. And then the second piece for me is making sure that we have an engaged community where we can actually make decisions that are community centered. I went to the ARPA funding meeting, and we have about 20,000 people who live in Ferguson, and there were about 15 or 20 people there. That's a very small percentage. And so I think that we need to do some serious work around engaging our community. And if they are not going to those meetings, we need to be able to knock on these people's doors, be outside of Schnucks, be outside of Walmart, and see if they can take a survey and see what's going on with their community.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Palmer. Mr. Palmer next. Yeah.
My first priority would be a fully staffed police department that constitutionally enforces the laws of our community. My second goal would be we need lots of work in the neighborhoods. We have got to take a large, an aggressive stance on vacant and dilapidated housing. There are probably 300 to 500 vacant homes in Ward 3 alone.
Wow.
Some streets are half occupied. We have got to get that under control. It is an attraction for dumping, for vagrancy, and for all kinds of crime. And it's a disincentive for anybody who's a stakeholder in the community who cares to do anything to their home. You know, when you live next door to 2 burned up houses, why do you want to spread mulch or paint or clean your gutters? Every dollar spent is kind of a wasted dollar. You're just looking for an exit strategy. We got to stop that vicious cycle with housing.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next question. Do you believe the charter should be changed to increase the mayor's powers? And we'll start with Ms. Lipka.
Sorry, I'm trying to be good and keep myself muted, and then I can't seem to get unmuted.
That's okay.
So as far as, do I think the charter? No, not at all. We have a small city, to correct you, Mr. Trayvon, we're actually 18,000 due to the last census. And with the size of our city, we need to maintain the charter with a city manager format of government. The city manager format of government walks in with the CEO attitude, and their job is nonpartisan, and it is designed to create the best services, the best business atmosphere that can possibly be done within the boundaries of this city. We now have great leadership. We have a new city manager by the name of Eric Osterberg. He is young, he is smart, he is just everything we need. And this man, I didn't vote for him at first when it came to hiring, but I'm so glad that I was wrong. I am happily the most wrong person from that moment, because this guy is awesome. And we need to give him a chance to do this work. And I think that this guy can actually really turn Ferguson into something that everybody knows it can be.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Robinette.
So in answer to the question, should the charter be changed to give the mayor more responsibility? The answer is no.
Okay.
I mean, I think we kind of answered this in a previous question, but the city manager form of government is more efficient. They have the qualifications, the background, the education, schooling, the know-how of how departments work, far more than anybody becoming elected and stepping into that. So I trust that the person that we hire, I think someone said it, as the CEO of our city, has all of that background necessary to lead the city. So the answer is no, I would not change the charter.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Walker.
So I wish I could have a conversation with this person, because I want to know what exactly they're saying when they say, should the mayor have more power? To my knowledge right now, the mayor is working in conjunction with the council. She doesn't have 2 votes and then they have 1 vote. They're working as a team. And so that's what I will be focused on city council, is getting things done, making sure that we have deadlines and we meet those deadlines as council person. I think that it's all about working together and making sure that when we have disagreements, that we can still move forward as a community. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Palmer.
Well, the question is quite vague. No offense to the person who submitted it. If said power was to wave a magic wand and install a speed bump, yeah, they should have that power. If it's to be paid 6 figures to run the city, no, they should not have that power, in my opinion. So I would need to know the list of what these new powers would be before I could make an educated guess or opinion on what if I was in favor of that or not. But a city of our size generally doesn't have a full-time mayor, because sometimes you might not get somebody who has the background or the experience to run your city in that position. And that's what I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you. I definitely would have to know exactly specifically what the person who proposed the question was talking about in terms of power to the mayor. I do know that some boards and commissions are appointed, are appointed directly by her or the mayor, whoever is sitting in that seat. And I do believe that should be something that should be left up to council to spread out. However, there are things that I do believe this is the mayor's position is a full-time job. I think anyone who has sat in that position and has worked as hard as the mayor and council could be able to attest to that. I don't know, without knowing if we're talking specifically around salary or just additional responsibility, it would be hard to answer that question. I would be open to seeing what the charter committee or commission actually comes up with in terms of recommendations before making a decision like that.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so here's the next question, and we'll start with Ms. Robinette. And the question is, in your opinion, what is Ferguson's greatest strength? And what is its most significant weakness?
All right. I would say Ferguson's greatest strength is its ability to get back up after it's been kicked down. I mean, we have seen, since I've been here in 18 years, I've seen multiple tornadoes. We had the unrest in 2014. We have this ability as a community to rally and gather and look out for each other. Even the early days of the pandemic, I mean, people looking out for each other and making sure that, you know, kids that weren't going to school were getting fed, and, you know, like all of these things that people stepped up to make sure were happening. That's community. Calling out our largest weakness right now, I would say not everybody feels safe right now because of the egregious traffic violations. I think that's our greatest weakness and our biggest thing that we should go after to make sure folks feel safe on the streets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Walker.
Thank you for that question. The strength that I see, the greatest strength in Ferguson is, okay, I'm not gonna say some of the housing stock because I feel like I could find something more important, but I will say Ferguson has some amazing homes in Ward 2, and some of the best homes in Missouri, honestly. But I'm not going to use that. What I will say is the greatest strength in Ferguson is people who really want to see Ferguson be reinvigorated. I've talked to a lot of people in Ferguson, and they still have hope for our city. And so they're looking for what are the ways that we can greater engage our community? How can we increase attendance at neighborhood association meetings? How can we reinvigorate? Like I live in Jeske Park, and our association has been sitting dormant for some time now. And so I think that it's time for us to look at some strategies that we can use to get our community back in some way, shape, or form engaged. Weakness, I would say, is just that. We're not engaged as a community, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer.
Our biggest strength, I'd say, is our residents and their resiliency to the events that can come up. You know, we've everything from demonstrations, protests, fires, tornadoes. People still are proud to be Ferguson residents. For every person I've met who's been here for 40 or 50 years, you find someone who just moved to town. And I always ask them what led them to our community. And I'm always impressed that we are still attracting people that do want to be a part of our community. So that, I think our residents are our greatest strength. That's always been our greatest strength. Our greatest weakness, I think, would be a lot of our division within our council, which makes it hard to implement policies to staff because our staff is extremely new. We have hardly anybody new or experience within city government, and a lot of vacancies, chair positions. You know, our finance director is gone, our human resource director is gone, our public works director's got less than 3 years on the job. Our economic developer's been here less than 5 years. Our city manager's less than a year. Okay. It's hard to get traction when you have that kind of turnover.
All right, thank you. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you. I would say our greatest strength is definitely just us wanting us as residents having the desire to want to create change, us having love for the city that we live in and love for the residents that live next to us, having compassion for each other. I definitely think that's something that is a strength for our city and for our residents overall. I would say in regards to our greatest weakness, it would be actually implementing the change that's needed. We have a really fun time at council reiterating words that we've read in books in terms of equity, but in terms of actually implementing it, it's always a pushback. And I think that's one of the things that hinders us as a community as a whole, is that we are not able to actually implement the change that we say that we're looking for.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Lipka.
So I'm pretty much going to echo. So when you said that question, I immediately wrote down our citizens. Our citizens are our greatest strength. And I go to the things that have already been mentioned. I was the one that organized with Jeff Aarons and Gail Aarons and Ferguson Baptist Church, the tornado cleanup. And we brought in people from all over the country to help us with the chainsaw crews and everything else. I personally walked door to door to door to every single house that was affected by the tornado and asked them if we could come on their property and cut down these trees. And we did quite a bit of work, millions of dollars worth of work for free. But the community came together. After Michael Brown, I was at Paul's Market. I got out of my car. A lady who didn't look like me and I didn't look like her looked at me and she goes, "Can I hug you?" And I said, "Absolutely." And we hugged each other. This is what the community is about. This is why I love this community. And as I said earlier, I have roots 4 generations deep in this community. Now, what is the greatest weakness? The greatest weakness is the fact that we don't value that more. The greatest weakness is the fact that we don't communicate more. And we have to do that to keep continuing to grow this community.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, did everybody get a chance to answer that question? Okay. Let's see. This is very simple. If you are an incumbent, what motivates you to want to continue serving on the city council? If you are not an incumbent, what motivates you to want to be and to serve on the city council? So we'll start with Mr. Walker.
So what inspired me to run for this position was attending the city council meetings. I think that there are a lot of good things happening right now, policy-wise, for our city in regard to the property restoration programs and a number of other things. But I think the reason that inspired me to run is, like I said, not a lot of constituents know about these programs. And so we have a lot of great things that people can take advantage of. But when I'm knocking on doors, when I'm talking to residents, they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Can you send me the link?" And so I think that that's a weakness, right? Everybody should be able to be informed and know what's going on in their community. And so that's what inspired me to run. I want to empower and inform people who live in Ferguson.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer.
As I mentioned in my introduction, I always kind of just stayed on my own and worked my butt off on my own and didn't really do much publicly. And I've come across thousands and thousands of residents of Ferguson since I've been here my whole life. People always kind of said, "Hey, you should run for office." And I said, I don't have time for that. But then somebody did once tell me, they said, "Hey, when you do something, you might not have time for it, but it seems like when you personally do something, you give it 110%. And that's true. I will never take on a task and half-ass it. I will give 110% every day, every hour I have to make things better. And with my experience in the community, knowing where we've come from, good and bad, I have a lot of knowledge and abilities to bring to the table. My specialty, my career is housing. I spend 100 hours a week in housing in Ferguson. Who better to work with housing programs on the city council, And people have asked me for years, "Hey, put your name in the hat." And that's why I decided to do so.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Griffin.
Could you please restate the question? I just want to make sure I have it.
Sure. What motivates you to run for a seat on the county council to represent? Is it Ward 3?
Ward 3. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
The people invigorate me to want to run again, because I still see that there is a need for representation for those who don't normally have a voice. I still see that when we pass policies that negatively impact those least fortunate, when we create a comprehensive plan that talks about development within the city over the next 20 years, and then we put a policy that does the opposite of that. It actually makes it harder for people to be able to thrive. And so I see there's a need to continue to push the envelope forward, to have uncomfortable conversations with people who, normally we wouldn't get a second motion, we wouldn't even have a discussion. There's still a need for me to be in this seat, and I intend to do that as long as I'm here.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Lipka.
So the reason I've decided to run for a 3rd term is, 1, the work isn't done. 2, I absolutely believe in this community. And three, when I look at it from my personal perspective, my heart, my daughter's friends are now in their 30s and they're now married. They have kids. They're moving back to Ferguson. And what I have to offer them a lifestyle that was as wonderful as theirs or better. They move back because they love their town. They want to raise their kids here because they love their town. Then we got to get the streets fixed. We've got to get the shooting to stop. We've got to slow down the traffic. We've got to make sure we have all of our city services at top-notch performance. We've got to make sure our parks are enjoyable and exciting for all the kids in the neighborhoods. We have to create this community, and we can, but we have to do it together. And as far as communicating and getting the word out, we have to create something that people want to know about. We can't shove information down their throats. If they don't want to keep up to date, we got to make it exciting. We got to make them want to keep up to date. So that's what we need to create.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Robinette.
So what motivates me to run for a third term? I think some folks know I have an engineering background, so I'm very pragmatic. I'm practical. I'm a budget hawk, and I'm a natural problem solver. And Ferguson is no stranger to problems that need solved. I approach council from a volunteer spirit, and I serve as a volunteer. I have not accepted any money from the city whatsoever. I turned down the stipend. I want to encourage other people to step up and volunteer. I want people to get out of their comfort zone and have hard conversations with neighbors they wouldn't otherwise. Get involved in a commission or a board. I just want to keep that spirit alive, and I'd like to do that with one more term. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, let me check my notes. I think we have come to the end of our questions. Sorry to say, but so now we're going to go with our closing statements. And let's see. Okay, so you'll each have 2 minutes. I'm looking at the clock. Okay. Let's say, Ms. Timekeeper, we've got a little extra time. How about 3 minutes? Okay. Is that okay with everyone? 3 minutes? Okay. Let's start with Ms. Fran Griffin.
Thank you. So I just want to thank the League of Women Voters as well as the Ferguson Public Library for providing this space for our residents and to listen to the different discussions. I definitely would love to have the support of each and every third ward resident in the city of Ferguson on Tuesday, April 5th, Election Day. And my work isn't done. You know, I got into this position because I wanted to make a change. I wanted to be part of a team where we would be willing to create that change in real life. When I talk to residents in the community all the time, they tell me that they haven't seen that change. And so I want to continue doing my part so that one day when I knock on the door of a resident in the third ward and I talk to them, they can say, hey, you know what? I've seen this play a part. Like I've been impacted in a positive way by what the council has put in place. And so we still have a consent decree that needs to be completed. We're currently working with social workers already in formerly Canfield, but Pleasant View Apartments. I've had conversations with the chief of police, and he's definitely interested in having social workers ride along. These are conversations that were initiated not because of the rest of the council. It was created because there was somebody like myself pushing to have those conversations when folks didn't want to have them at all. And so it really pleases me to hear some of the council members and some of the candidates actually now speaking in regards to that, because that's something that I have pushed from the very beginning. So I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity for hearing me out. And if there's anything else that I need, I'm always going to be around. I've always said, even with the last election, whether I win or lose, I'm going to continue to do the work. And I would appreciate the rest of the residents in the community continuing to work with me as we go along.
Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Palmer.
Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening and answer the 8 questions. I wish there had been more. That kind of gets back to our issue of low participation rate. I'm not on YouTube, but I would imagine less than 100 people are watching this out of a town of 18,000. That's pitiful. We've got to get more people involved. People have talents all over Ferguson. We need to use those talents. People are willing to volunteer. We have to get those volunteers to come out and help to make the change that we want to see. I'm all about getting conversations started to make improvements, but I'm a doer. So once it gets past the conversation, you got to actually implement changes. And if you haven't seen change after a while, you got to change your strategy. Been here my whole life. I don't want to move. I'm starting a family here this summer, and I'm prepared to be elected if I'm so fortunate, and I'm ready to hit the ground running and make the change we need to see so that our residents feel safe in the community. They can go out at night, they can enjoy the parks. You don't got to worry about getting ran over. Don't got to worry about gunfire. We've got to get these things under control so people feel safe and they want to move here. They want their families to move here, and they want to enjoy the assets we do have in the community. Thank you.
Mr. Walker.
The lens that I will bring once elected will certainly be informed by my personal experiences and hardships, but more than anything, it will be by the people that I listen to and commit to listen to every day. I truly believe that these times require activist leadership to ensure that each and every resident is informed and empowered. When my family and I moved to Ferguson some years ago, we were quickly welcomed with letters from our neighbors on the street saying, "Welcome, here's our number. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out." This was something that we never experienced living in St. Louis, and it truly exemplified the heart of Ferguson that is still there. Ferguson has great potential, and with major development projects coming to our city, we must have an informed and engaged community to truly reach our peak. I will never grow complacent to the disparities and hardships our residents face. The Ferguson 2040 plan is a robust one that will take intentional action to achieve. I am ready to be a part of that action. If anyone follows local politics, you may recall a very large development project that was nearly passed by the Webster Grove City Council. The community of Webster Groves organized and sought council to not move forward on this plan. After a grassroots campaign, this $320 million development plan was halted. Here are some data points on North County community engagement. And if you haven't noticed so far, I love data, so I hope you're not annoyed yet. St. Louis County has recently received close to $200 million in ARPA funding. This may be the largest sum of money from the federal government in our lifetime. To date, in our district that Rita Days represents, in our district, only 191 people have filled out a survey for how the money should be spent. And her district is composed of over 100,000 people. Our local government in Ferguson can too equip our citizens with the tools to remain informed, engaged, and hopeful for the future of our city. On April 5th, cast your vote for change. Vaughn Walker, Ferguson City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Ms. Robinette.
Thank you. And I'd really like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Ferguson Public Library for putting this together, and to thank the other current council members and hopeful incumbents for participating. This was a good discussion, and like Mr. Palmer said, I wish there were more people watching this play out. One of the things, a really interesting conversation that I had with a fairly new resident here lately. He had moved from St. Louis County and there was a problem property that we were addressing. And our neighborhood organization is trying to revamp. I think Mr. Walker talked about some of the neighborhood organizations need to be re-energized. And he was letting me know that he had these talents that he wanted to bring to the table. He just needed a way to get plugged in. And I told him, I said, well, one of my superpowers is exploiting other people's superpowers. So if you let me know what you like to do, I will find a place to get you plugged in. And so that started what was initially kind of a tense conversation about a problem property, turned into a really good exchange. And now we have someone who's willing to step up in the neighborhood, that is new to the area and really wants to make a difference. So it's having these conversations. It's not just hearing from your echo chamber that things are going great, or that, you know, what you're doing is on point. The people who challenge us and the people who challenge our ideas are the people who help us grow the most. And so I think it's always been important to listen to what everybody has to say. Whether or not you want to hear that directly, it does matter, and it is worth listening to. And so I hope that on April 5th, Ward 2 residents will elect me again for my third term. Heather Robinette, Ward 2, Ferguson City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinette. And Ms. Lipka.
Okay, so I am running again because I really, really, really want to finish my work. I feel like when I got into this, I was not prepared to do this. I was like, okay, I need to step up. I need to help. And 2016, I really felt like we needed to help. As I said, I've worked in helping the community in so many different ways. And so running for council was a whole new experience. And when we talk about uncomfortable, yeah, I was very uncomfortable, but it was a quick learning experience. And the more I learned, the more I loved. And I've always known from day one that I'm here for the citizens. When I'm sitting on council, I know that I get crazy, I get fiery, I get fierce when I get up there. And some people may misconstrue that as me being mean or something like that. I'm not. I am just so passionate. I'm adamant that we can make change. I'm adamant that we can work together. And I know that there's a better Ferguson that's just around the corner for all of us. And when I'm looking at this, to answer Mr. Palmer, we've got a new city manager. We've actually been working with temporary city managers way too long. We've been working with multiple police chiefs way too long. We now have a police chief. We now have a city manager. We're so close. I think we've already hired a finance director. I think we've already hired a human resource director, or we're pretty darn close. But we've got a city manager who is capable and is ready to start doing the work. And when you're just holding things together with duct tape and spit, and then you finally get somebody that can do it with nails and concrete, we got to give them a chance. So as far as being on city council, I want to help him get that going. I want to see our programs that we're working in partnership with the state of Missouri, with the United States, with our local communities around us. We've got a highway program or a street program that's going to come into us with street funding to repair our streets very soon. We've got ARPA. We've got the highway program right now that's happening as we speak that's going to improve the safety and the lives of people coming off the highway in our community. We've got the West Florissant Development Program. We've got the Greenway program. There's so many things that are on the cusp. We're so close. And I just want to get this work done. I love this community. And even when people think, oh, she doesn't like that council person, if you really know who I am, I love everybody on council. We're awesome women. We are getting the job done. We need some men in here, but I'm telling you, we're awesome. And, I just really feel like there's another area too that I want to address. We have got to stop thinking that diversity means black and white. Diversity means that we need to create a community, an environment of business and lives and homes and neighbors that is all different ethnic groups. We need more ingredients is what we need. And we need to make it a welcoming atmosphere. And I just feel like this is something I want to be part of and I want to keep working on. Please vote for Linda Lipka, Ward 1, April 5th. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. I want to say to the candidates here, thank you so much. First of all, for being willing to serve. And I think the Ferguson community is very fortunate to have you. So we want to thank you for being willing to be of service to your fellow citizens. And also thank you for participating in this forum this evening. We want to send out thanks to members of the audience who did submit some questions and for tuning in to make this a successful event. And I think Mr. Bonner will be on, and I think this might be posted on YouTube or something. So try to encourage other residents to view this. They need to, as you said, be engaged. I want to thank Mrs. Susan Williams for being our dynamite timekeeper. She did a fantastic job. Thank you, Sue. Now, if you found this forum to be helpful, think about joining and/or supporting the League of Women Voters. We're open to all, including men. We have lots of men that belong to our organization, so just know that. You can check us out. Go to our website at www.lwvstl.org. Let me repeat that, www.lwvstl.org. If you want any information, you can call our office at 314-961-6869. We work closely with the St. Louis County Board of Elections, and they kind of lean on us to help them answer questions that voters might have and to disseminate information. But feel free to call the St. Louis County Board of Elections, and their number is 314-615-8100. I don't know if you know this or not, but the League of Women Voters works closely with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch to produce and publish a voter's guide. And it comes out just before every sizable election. And so the voter's guide is out in newspaper form. It was an insert in one of the newspapers last week, I think. You can also access it electronically by going to vote411.org. You can go to that website. Now, if you access it electronically, it will only show what's going to be on the ballot for your zip code. But you can check at, I'm sure the library has some paper copies of the voter's guide. Now that covers the whole St. Louis City, St. Louis County, Franklin County, Jefferson, the whole ball of wax. So that's what we love to do, and the voter's guide is out now. The last day to request an absentee ballot, I believe, is March 25th. So that's what is today, the 21st. So that's just right around the corner. And of course, so that's the Friday, last day to request an absentee ballot. On March 26th and Saturday, April 2nd, you can vote absentee in person. Those are Saturdays. And I think the voting is like from 10 to 1 or something like that. You can probably find out where you can go to vote absentee by calling the St. Louis Board of Elections. Sue, do you know if the North County Rec Center is open again as a satellite absentee voting site?
I'm really not sure.
It has been for the past 2 or 3 years. So, and of course, we want everybody to remember to vote on April 5th. Citizenship and elections are not a spectator sport. We need folks to be engaged and to participate. So, Mr. Scott Bonner, that's all I have for this evening. Did you want to close us out? Did you have something to say?
Yes, thank you everyone for participating. We are very glad to do this and glad that we had the chance to help build this community in every way we can. This is one of those ways. For anyone who is watching right now, this feed will stay up at the same YouTube address that you already went to. So share that address out to your friends. You can share the flyer. That address is on there. The address is bit.ly/FMPL Council 22. So share that out and get everyone a chance to get informed before they go out and vote. Thanks
Is
all.
the FMPL capitalized or does it matter?
It does not matter, but it's not capitalized.
And then that's a .com.
It is the bit.ly is the .ly. That takes care of that's
Got it.
the .com.
Gotcha.
bit.ly/FMPL Council 22.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, good luck, everyone.
Thanks.
We enjoyed it,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
best wishes to all the candidates.
Thanks for helping us, ladies.
Oh, our pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
Yep.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.